maalala mo talaga siya sa lahat.
Okay, let's go back to our questions here. First, how do we know that Maze is still in love with her ex-boyfriend? Write your answers on the comment box, class. I know that there will be several answers, but I think you will agree with me when I say that the fact she can still associate or relate every random thing to her ex makes her still in love with him, right? Have you experienced that before? Relating things to the person you have once loved? I guess everyone shares with Mace's experience. How about the second question? Would writing a memoir or personal essay easy for her? Is it a yes or a no for you? I do believe that the answer is a big yes. And why is that? You still remember what we said about memoirs and personal essays? These two subgenres are highly reliant on memory. You have to really reflect and remember everything in a true story you would want to write about. This, however, is not the ending, but the starting point of writing memoirs or any subgenre of creative nonfiction. The beginning of writing class or the beginning of writing this genre may be difficult, but techniques such as what Mace did in the video may help us a lot. Actually, what Mace did resembles either free listing or memory chains. These two are two of the ways in which we may draft a story. In free listing, we pick a topic or subject, then write as many concrete details about it as possible in a few minutes. From the things we listed, we can begin writing about the topic. Meanwhile, memory chain is a bit similar to free listing, but the former would involve objects around the writer instead of a subject or topic that pop out of the writer's mind. In the memory chains, the writer begins popping out memories about a nearby object. From the list of things the writer has written, he or she writes a story. Again, these two techniques belong to the 10 ways in drafting the true story. Besides this topic, we shall also cover the 8 ideas to getting started. Now, you may think that getting started and drafting are the same since both would involve beginning the writing process. Actually, they are, yes, similar but different with one thing. Drafting, for one, as you can see, refers not only to the getting of ideas to get started. Drafting is also involved in the development of an ongoing story. Free listing and memory chains may both help the writer in thinking of how to start and how to further develop the real life characters he or she has in the memoir. This is in contrary to the term starting, which literally means the beginning of thinking of ideas or topics to write about. These are ideas that make us think of a topic to write about. Altogether, techniques in starting and drafting allow writers to loosen up, reflect, notice, and practice self exploration. I do not know if you have tried writing a story before, but everyone would agree with the idea that sometimes writers experience what we call the writer's block. That moment when you cannot find the things to write about. Using the techniques, however, in this lesson would somehow lessen these episodes in your life as a writer. Let's begin with the first of the 8 ideas to getting started. Here we have free writing. From the name itself, what will you do is to just get a piece of paper or maybe your notebook and write freely without stopping for a certain number of minutes. To do this, you time yourself 5 minutes, click the timer, and begin writing as many as you can. Note that you don't have to worry about your grammar, spelling, and other elements of writing. Just let your thoughts run free, class. This is an example of free writing. Here we can see that the writer is narrating a memorable moment. That moment when he or she finally got his or her driver's license. Let's try to read the first parts. The day I got my driver's license. Cloudy, raining, crummy taste in my mouth. Nervous stomach, sweaty hands, exam room, crowded. What have you noticed? The writer did not care if what she's or his writing is grammatical. He or she just wrote whatever that came into his or her mind. Did you even notice that the word exam room was not written with correct capitalization? And that altogether this note did not even care writing complete sentences. Yes, we were trained in writing complete sentences, but to kickstart an idea, you have to let go of those conventional things for a while and just let your thoughts flow. Reserve the correcting part in the shaping part, which we will discuss next meeting. Again, class, this is free writing. Another way to get started is to use a springboard line. This line could come from any media or material you have read, watched, or listened before. What you do is you pick this line up and begin writing based on this line. What are some of the examples of lines in movies, novels, or short stories that we can use as springboard line? Can you give one line which you have read or heard somewhere? Write those lines on the comment box, class. I'll wait for your answers. Now, class, let's say we decide to use the line from the novel and movie The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. That line from Augustus Waters, that's the thing about pain. It demands to be felt. If I'm the writer, based on this line, I can start writing about a very painful wound I've had when I was a child and narrate how I got it. I can say I kept riding a bicycle alone and tried challenging slopes. Now I realized I could have avoided being hurt had I made things easy for myself and tried the even roads before going on steep ones. See, I've already written a lot by just looking at one line. The key here, class, is to be honest about your memory, your experiences, and your feelings. Remember that holding back makes writing even more difficult. Let your ideas flow freely and feel free to go off topic. Don't be so conscious about the consistency of the work. Don't mind in class. Don't even mind explaining why you picked this line. Some students begin by explaining why they picked that line. Don't care to explain it, just write something about it. Now, these first two starters sound rightish, right? How about the next technique? This is morning or dust walk. Now, this is something you may not do during lockdowns because you have to walk outside in the morning or in the evening. Of course, given the technology we have now, we can even do this using virtual spaces or Google Maps. Once you're outside class, you begin by observing the things around you. You look around, then write about a certain object, thing, or event you have seen. Choose one that seems to be ordinary. Remember, our goal in CNF is to make something ordinary extraordinary. Choose that ordinary or trivial thing and write about it. This may be a plant, your dog, your neighbor, the tricycle driver, anything and anyone as long as you can see them within your circumference. Now, this is an example I'm giving you, or this example I'm giving you is actually a poem or a subgenre of creative writing. However, given the words in this poem entitled In a Station of the Metro by Ezra Pound, one would infer that the persona is talking about what he or she sees in a station in the metro. Look at how the persona tells about what he or she sees. The apparition of these faces in the crowd falls on a wet black bow. This poem may be short, class, but you can really tell that the persona authentically writes about the fast pace of people, which seems to be which means to make them apparitions. Now, next on our list is listening to others. This does not mean that you have to interview someone or to talk and listen to someone. Listening to others means literally listening, if not eavesdropping, on the conversation of others. What you need to do here is to listen to conversations of other people and write the things you will hear from them. Basically, you will fill in the shoes of someone who puts a nose on other people's business. You're, however, never going to involve yourself. You're just going to listen to the conversation and start writing about that. This is what listening to others is like. When you're already writing about what you have heard, do not just narrate what happened. Write conversations in the form of a dialogue. It is as if you're really writing a story. I hope that this would help you in starting up or in starting your write up. Now, besides observation on one's surroundings and listening to others, thinking about an event that happened in the past can likewise help you start. This is what we call snapshot of memory. Here, you think of one memory before you were 10 years old. Once you have focused on that memory, write the facts that everyone would agree on about this moment. Second, write how it felt to me. This means your snapshot of memory would have two paragraphs. One for facts based on others, and another fact based from or based on your own perspective. Basically, what you will do here is to remember a childhood memory, right? About the real things that happened and how other people responded. Next, write about how it felt to you. Then write a third version that combines both the first and the second paragraph. To pull this off, class, there's a need to present the true story with generous amount of sensory details. Remember that you will be writing the story like how you write fiction. So you make the story something that makes the readers believe that they were actually in the place you talked about. Now, class, recording quotations is quite different to springboard line. In the latter, what we do is we get a line or quotation and then write about it. Here, in recording quotations, you just prepare a notebook where you can write quotations that you consider strikingly amusing or annoying. You may use them to generate ideas on what to write. Small moments, on the other hand, is the writing of a recent, if not ongoing event. Using this, we write about a here and now moment in our day. This moment may be funny, strange, or infuriating. Now, remember that in order to secure a funny, strange, or infuriating tone in writing, you do not forget sensory details. These details, class, allow the readers to see, listen, hear, and or touch things as if they were there in that moment you narrate. Now, last on the 8 ideas to start writing CNF is private and public. By private, we are pertaining to your write-ups that you do not want to divulge into the public scene. By public, of course, we're talking about the write-ups that you think can be posted on social media sites. Usually, a sensitive topic is made into private by the narrator. Now, to do the private and public techniques, first you have to think of a topic and write it 2 ways. First, write about the topic only for yourself. Then write for others to read. Note that there are 2 versions of the stories. One that you can read and one that can be read by others. Or one that only you can read and one that can be read by others. For example, I want to write about my family. The first version of the story will include things that are kept within the family. Alright? The second version will be including or will not be including those I chose to be kept private. After I've done this, I will reread both versions a day later and ask myself which one I want to share. Of course, class, at the end of the day, it's still our choice whether or not to share the story we think we must not let others know. Alright, so I hope that these 8 ideas to get started have given you ideas on how to loosen up and think of a topic to write about. Now, I want to see if you're really listening. In 30 seconds, I'd like you to write these 8 ideas to getting started. Write your answers on the comment box. Timer starts now. All right, so what are your answers? Do we have the same answers? If your answers in the comment box are the same with these, then you are certainly correct. Now, let's proceed to the drafting part. Remember that in drafting, we have already the topic we want to write about. After the techniques we have used in getting started, it's expected that you have already thought of an idea to write about. With the topic at hand, you may begin exploring which way to draft may be suited to your preference and or situation. Before we move on to the various ways to draft, note that these ways intend to generate ideas that you may use in writing about the topic at hand. This generation of ideas in turn trigger the muse or the writer's inspiration to write. Since inspiration is unstable, the writer from time to time may find it difficult to write. Inspiration to write class must sometimes be triggered through variety of techniques. These techniques are rather effective in summoning this muse. One last reminder, class. Drafting is not the avenue for you to think of the dullness or ungrammaticality of sentences you write about. Remember, class, that here the goal is to develop more and more ideas that will serve as basis for the writer's work. Criticizing one's work, in short, in this case or in this moment, is discouraged. There will be a time for correcting, editing, and revising. I'm afraid here that the goal is for you to just generate and build up on ideas. Let's begin the discussion on the techniques or ways of drafting with the most uncommon one, rereading the notebook. I labeled this the most uncommon one because it's not the practice of each and every one of us to write a journal or a diary. Here, the idea is to go to one of your journals or diaries, look for a few lines or a few pages that grab your attention, and start writing about these. Look for those passages with oozing tension and uneasiness. That is, passages that make you wonder why you have written them in the first place. Try to remember the day or that day when you have written those passages and begin writing as to the reasons why you wrote those. Next is free listing. Just like what we said a while ago, in free listing, we select a subject or a topic and begin writing phrases about it. The idea is not to be conscious of the grammar or nor the length of the list you are to write. Just write them down. Now, remember that this is still nonfiction writing, so be true to the things you write. It would be better if you focus on the concrete or observable details of that topic or subject. Jot down at least 8 phrases before writing about the subject you have chosen. Let's have an example. Let's say you want your school to be the subject of your write-up. Again, let's say that you want your school to be the subject of your write-up. Free listing can actually help you on this. Again, all you have to do is first to jot down at least 8 phrases or words that are related to your school. I think that the best way to learn free listing is to do it. So let's try to write on the comment box what you remember about your school. That one that served as your junior high school. Again, do not be bothered about grammar or anything. Just write them down. You have 30 seconds to do this. Timer starts now. Alright, so what are your answers? If I will be in your shoes, I shall be writing these phrases. Alright, so these phrases could be the ones that we can write about. School gates that have opened to children and bid goodbye to wiser young people. strict yet jolly school guards, and stares containing the boisterous laughter both before and after class. Do we share some answers? Do not worry if your answer is not here, for we would really have a different list of phrases as to what we can associate with the school we have in mind. The important thing here, class, is that you can write a list of details about that topic or subject. From these lines or phrases, you can begin writing about your school. I hope that you see these techniques or ways in helping the ideas come out of you. Another idea generator is what we call line starters. Now, this is somewhat similar to springboard line. You also pick a line from any kind of media and begin writing about it. The only addition class here is that you can replace some words in that line or rephrase it altogether according to the detail you want to emphasize. These class are only a few of some line starters that you may use as a way to begin writing about the topic. All right, so let's have the first one. I used to blank, but now I blank. I remember, all right, to include something that you remember, and then another I remember. Or you can also start with I don't remember or switch back and forth. If I had to do it again, I would. All right, so you replace the blank with your own words. Another thing, begin with one of these, then write sentences that support why you have decided to write that line that way. Class, you can also write line starters using the following line starters here. A saying I always heard around the house was blank. The first time I heard the song blank, I was or we were blank. She's the type or blank is the type of person who blank. One rule I never live by is blank. Again, the idea is that you will choose one line starter, then replace the blanks with your own words. From there, it is expected that you write why you wrote that line in that way. Now, like Maze a while ago, you can definitely use memory chains to aid you in writing your draft. This technique was introduced by James Moffett. Here are the two things you must do if you want to use memory chain. Number one, look at an object within your surroundings and ask yourself what that object reminds of you or reminds you of. Wait for a moment for a memory to arise. Soon your mind will think of an event, situation, or experience related to that object. Now, using this technique will help you dig into memories through pre-association. You still remember how Mace related each random thing to her ex? That's a principle you will learn here. Every object you see has some memories. Memory chain lets you think of that memory. Remember, class, that to write enough details for each memory to have the beginning of a story without writing the whole story. Unlike free listing, where you can be as random as you can be, in memory chain, you make sure that each phrase you write is connected or linked to the preceding one you wrote. Generate at least 6 to 8 links on your chain. Let's say I have here a glass of milk tea on my table and I want to write a draft using a memory chain on milk tea. What will I write? Alright, so here are some details I remember or some of the things that I will write. The first time I tasted milk tea was when I was in elementary school. Milk teas were already sold in Chowking as night cha. It was as sweet as the milk tea today. The only difference is that the old milk tea I first tried did not have many black pearls as milk teas of today would normally have. Back then, I was not really a fan of milk teas. I was already working, or when I was already working, I saw milk tea as a way to reward myself and to also chat with people. Sometimes milk teas taste better when you mix them with shades of stories, things you may or may not relate with, but keep on listening to while sipping those elusive pearls. Now, if you'll notice, all of the sentences were written with milk tea or were written with milk tea as subject. No sentence or phrase was written about something else. The progression class is clear. I began with the first time I tasted milk tea, time when I was still a kid, and then I mentioned some kinds of milk teas that emerged while I was growing up. In the end, I mentioned sentences that tell something of my experiences with milk tea at this age. I hope that you likewise saw the use of sensory words or words that make the reader see, taste, smell, hear, or touch the object I describe. Learn to paint the picture in words in such a way that the readers experience it firsthand. Now, using these sentences, I think I can write already a short memoir about myself with milk tea as title. Again, class, this is only one of the ways that you can apply memory chain in drafting on an object you see around you. Now, if you want to have a more organized way of jotting down memories, you can try clustering. Here you can choose or you choose a word and put it in the middle of a piece of paper. The next thing you have to do is to draw a circle around it and jot down associations that come to mind, putting circles around every new association. Do not forget to draw lines between circles to show the connections. Let's see an example. This class is a clustering done for the word purple. This is like writing a concept map, but with emphasis on memories you can associate with the word. Here we see that the color purple is associated with or by the writer with sunset, with the sun on the horizon, and other things that are obviously on the beach. Using these details, class, you can already write a vignette or a story or a short self-contained piece of writing that tells a story. Let's see an example of a vignette based on the clustering we did for the word purple. I love how the sails catch the wind and the porpoises leap into the air like escorts to paradise, and how the waves splash high enough to delight without drenching, and the breeze makes even a bad hair day good. I should relax, seeing only the splash of pink and purple, luring the sun to the horizon. But the water shadows make me stiffen with what ifs. Here, the writer has made a vignette of what he or she thinks while looking at the purple and pink sea as it engulfs the sun. Now, there are three more things I would like to add if you are to use clustering as a technique to draft about a topic. First, stay specific in imagery or use concrete images. If you will go back to the vignette a while ago, you have felt as if you were there, right? With the writer enjoying the scenery. This is because of the use of words that really appeal to the senses. Second and lastly, be logical but stay connected, or be less logical but stay connected to the details you write in the cluster. Do not write two logical words such as milk being related to the cow and then the cow being related to the sound of the moo. You would not be able to write anything with these words. What you can do in the contrary is to write milk, then connect it with the complexion of your crush up to maybe your first heartbreak. Be creative, class, about the cluster you develop. Now, if memories are kind of difficult to remember, why not try looking at old photographs? Maybe they can help you remember, right? This is basically the point in the next technique to drafting, which is the use of photographs. Here, pictures provide the concrete details that trigger fresh writing. To use a photograph as springboard, like how we may use a line or quote as starter, describe the details in the photograph to show what is intended to be told. Rule of thumb in using photographs as springboard, describe what is happening in the picture but do not tell what's happening. What do we mean by this? Let's have an example. Do you see this picture here? Of course, that's me. I don't know with you, but I seem to inject some remnants of emotions and experiences in every picture I take. Now, again, the idea is to just describe and not tell. So if I'm to write about this paragraph, I can write these passages. Is it too emotional to say that not every smile is a sign of happiness? That not every curve on the cheeks means escape from the curves of life? I hope not. Or if it is, would it be so wrong to be such? Would being too emotional be too much for one whose innocence and genuine affections have been replied the opposite? Looking at this photo, I've seen myself at the verge of self-induced afflictions again. Nevertheless, the person I am will always remember how brave the person I was, smiling despite. Here, I'm describing what my feelings were when I took this picture. Obviously, I'm painting myself here as someone who was hurt but continues to brave challenges in life with a smile. Note that I described the feeling but did not tell you black and white that I was heartbroken or I got hurt. This is what we mean by not telling what happened. We just describe what happened from the descriptions, and from the descriptions, the readers can infer what happened. Again, we just describe what happened and let the readers infer on what really happened through the descriptions that we have written. Using photographs class, you can find, or in using photographs, you can find a picture of a former you and write in the present tense about what you were thinking and feeling. This is an interior monologue as if you're talking to yourself. Make it appear as if there's a dialogue between yourself and someone else in the photo. In the example I gave, what I did was to just describe the old me in the picture. Well, you can do better than that by writing a dialogue between the old you and the new you in such a way that readers will not even notice that there is a dialogue. Note that there are several ways. You can also use a photo to write passages. Number one, you can describe the setting, who the people are, what they're like, and what social dynamics are. Show, do not tell the mood of the moment. You can also imagine what others in the photo are thinking or write about the moment from their points of view using their voices. And maybe you can also use any of these techniques to write passages, okay, about the photographs you want to use as springboard. Now, if you do not want to deal with the past, then you can also find a photo of a place you have visited or want to visit or would never visit and start writing about the reasons why. Another technique class to draft is the personal research. Here you might consider interviewing a family member, surveying friends, looking up old newspaper articles, reading old letters, and doing other research-driven methods to provide creative jolts for a draft. In the article, How to Get Away with Murder in Small Town India by Ellen Barry, the writer interviewed some of the victims' neighbors not only to verify the truth about what happened, but also to paint the picture of a corrupt system in a town here in India. There's another interesting way of writing passages that take the past as basis. Class, a timeline, allows the writer to explore a subject over time against the backdrop of history and culture. It connects the personal and the political in surprising ways that move memoirs and personal essays into larger social contexts, linking one person's story to a larger cultural one. Let's see how it is done. Here you have 5 columns class, and the ones devoted to local world events are dependent on the number of years you are to write on the first column. I suggest that in using a timeline, consider only the most striking years of your life, or the years that really have a story to tell. Do not include anymore those that have minor details to tell about you. Okay, now, on the third column, which is about local or world events, list down political or cultural events that have had an impact on you and or your family. In this case, we have John Kennedy's win as President of the United States. But in my case, I can cite 2004 as something that somehow had an impact, not only to me but also to my family. It was during this year that I was promoted to grade 4 and that the world was shocked not only by the Asian tsunami in Thailand, Sri Lanka, and other nearby countries, but also by the emergence of the first SARS virus, the ancestor of the current coronavirus. Now, for the fourth column, you will write there a list of events in your life that shaped you. Here we see important events in the life of the writer. For the last column, write about the attitudes and insights that others may or may not know, describing the way those particular events felt to you. If you missed details, you may replay this part and look at the sample timeline. Last but not the least, we have felt sense as a way to draft your first or our first write-up. Felt sense class refers to what we know intuitively in our bodies before words come. To harness this, there is a need to follow a guideline for composing that helps writers relax, contact a felt sense, and write from a centered place. Of course, this is something that we can get only if we will buy that guideline. So I do not recommend this as a way to draft your first write-up. Besides, unfortunately, we have the other 9 ways of helping you with drafting. Now, before we end the virtual learning session for today, let's answer 3 questions. Are you ready? Let's begin with this. Which of the drafting techniques is involved when you begin to write on a topic based on a quotation or line posted on Facebook? Again, I'm talking about a drafting technique. You have 20 seconds to write your answers on the comment box. Timer starts now. Alright, so what is your answer? If your answer is line starters, then you are correct. How about this one? Which of the drafting techniques would you use to better characterize a real character in your memoir? Again, which of the drafting techniques we discussed would allow you to use it would allow you to use it as a way to better characterize a real character in your memoir. All right, you have 20 seconds. Go. Okay, so if your answer is free listing, you're correct. Remember that this drafting technique would best help you in characterizing underdeveloped characters. Let's have this last question. Which drafting technique will you use to develop a vignette? Again, which drafting technique will you use to develop a vignette? Come on, comment your answers. Now, I won't be giving a single answer to this one, for there are lots of techniques that we can use to write a very short story about an experience. It is my hope, class, that in this virtual learning session, you have been acquainted with the sound ways not only to let yourself think of a topic to write about, but also techniques on how to write on those topics you would write about. Now, given that you already know the ways on how to begin writing creative nonfiction, the question now is, how do you finish it? Or how do we finish the draft we began? Next virtual learning session, we will talk about the principle of shaping and how it can help you in structuring the write-up you will soon begin to write. Once again, This is Jasper Angeles, your virtual teacher for creative nonfiction. See you again next time.